Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite channel. So like always guys, I've got another weekly forex analysis for you. So on the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I will be going through each pair, breaking down what's happened this week and potentially what could be happening next week as well. So I hope you do enjoy the video, but with all that said guys, let's get straight into it. Okay, so first up we've got Euro USD. So as you can see for this pair, a bit of a move to the upside this week. Again, nothing too crazy, but we did see that bullish momentum really come in at the start of the week with that push, and then from then kind of a little bit sideways for Euro USD. But we are starting to put in this bullish structure now as we're having those push pullbacks, and potentially could be another push on the cards. But the levels we're focusing on for Euro USD is this double bottom all the way back over here, just using the data we have on the left. And taking that across, which is around the 1.16200 mark, which was acting as resistance a couple weeks ago now. And we're looking to play off that resistance again this week. If we're going the 4H time frame, looking to play off that resistance again this week. However, price broke through that. Like I said, if we do break through that, wait for that retest, because we could be looking at some continuations to the upside. So with Euro USD, if that price action does continue, we well could be seeing those continuations coming into next week, maybe even early on, because we're starting to look very, very bullish. As you can see, we're putting a lot of rejection at that level as well. So there is quite a good probability we could continue. But like I said, we still do have this resistance here, which was the initial target for this week. And if I just take that across, you can see it was this daily support here on the left, which we never retested, and this is our first retest. So price is in a little bit of a range, so either one or two things is going to happen next week. Either we continue this bullish structure of push pullback, and we see another continuation. Then if that's the case, we will look to get into buys around here, or the safer option would be on the break and retest of this, so you can clear that daily resistance, wait for the retest of this level, and then we'll go for the continuations from there. Or the second thing that could happen is that price respects this daily support term resistance now, and we collapse and just continue this overall bearish trend that we've got going here on the daily, and just see another leg to the downside, back down to those lows, and maybe even further as well. So Euro USD could do one of those two things, and we will be prepared for both of those scenarios. If we're going to take that second opportunity, we'll wait for the break of this support, and then we'll wait for the retest and some retracement, and then we'll get into some continuations back down to these lows, taking our trade from around there. So if that sell opportunity does come, again, still looking good, the risk reward does look good, with stops above that level, of course, and targeting those lows and maybe even further as well, but looking to head back down to those lows. But if we don't and price holds as a support, we ignore that sell opportunity, wait for the break, look for the continuations around this level here, and then take the long trade to the upside. And potentially we could be seeing USD start to reverse, because DXY is looking a little bit weak now, and it looks like it could be getting ready to reverse. So if that's the case, Euro USD could be going up for the next couple of weeks or so. So we'll look for the continuation around this area, around 1.16 to 1.16700. And then we'll look for continuations and probably look to target this resistance here on the left around the 1.17400 area. So really nice long and short opportunities if they come. Price is a little bit sideways now, so wait for price to make the decision as to where it wants to go. If it wants to push up, cool, we'll go with it to the upside. If not, if it wants to break to the downside, we'll wait for that retracement and take those shorts into those lows for next week. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So for this pair, we've been really bullish over the past few days, couple of weeks now, but we've seen a little bit of retracement to the downside. We lost a lot of momentum, and we've seen those 2-3 bearish candles there to the downside, and we did anticipate that coming into this week, because if you checked out my weekly analysis from the previous week, you would understand that we've come into a really key area of value on the weekly time frame. So if I can see this level here on the left, and if I just take that across, so really strong rejections all across there, And if I take that across, you can see we've just come into that again this week. So we're expecting to see, nothing too aggressive, nothing too exciting, just to see a slight reaction to the downside coming into this level. And we did see that on the weekly time frame. And again, this small bearish candle there in the weekly looks really, really small on the weekly time frame. But going into the 4H hourly, this is quite, a decent move where you can look to get some nice pips to the downside there. So we did come into a key level where we were looking for that rejection to the downside. And actually, if I go back to the weekly and draw that level back in, I do think potentially price could be coming back down to retest this level here, because this was really strong resistance that price just broke through really, really easily. So I think we can see a retest that of support eventually. Again, this is the weekly time frame, so that could take 2, 3, 4 weeks to actually get there, but we could be seeing a slight bearish trend forming to the downside back into that level. So that is something to note for the future, for the near future for USD, that we could be seeing a push all the way down to 112, all the way down there. But right now prices are looking a little bit bearish here, and we'll be looking for sales coming into next week. As you can see, we are putting some slight bearish structure here, nice push, pullback, push, pullback, push, and then we broke through structure, a little bit pullback there, and looking a little bit bearish. So potentially could see a bit of a bearish trend forming, like I said, back down to that 112 area. So for USD next week, we'll be looking for another push back into this weekly resistance, back into that 4H zone there, maybe coming into this kind of head and shoulders area around here. If I just draw that level in around there as well, so around the 114,400 area. So just coming back into this area, form another lower high, and we'll look for some sales to the downside. And again, targets don't have to necessarily be all the way down to 112, which is all the way down there. We can look for a push into this area, because again, it is still strong support where we've got this wick around there. If we do break through this though, there's a good chance we'll make our way down to there, because again, not much levels where people will be looking to get involved. A lot of clear price action where price might want to go and retrace. So looking for one more retracement to the upside, another low high in the market. And then targets will be that 113,200, and if we can get a break of that, we'll be looking at 112, test that weekly support, now resistance, all the way down there. Actually, no, resistance, now support, actually, all the way down there around 112. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to USD CAD. So USD CAD, as you can see, has been falling to the downside for a few days now, starting to stall a little bit, coming into our key level around the 1.23. So nice psychological level, and also nice support as well. Gave us a really nice move to the upside. And as you can see, slight bullish candle there. Nothing too major, but it is showing some signs of rejection. If we do break through this, however, and that bearish momentum does continue, then we will be looking for the break and retest of that level. And like I said last week, looking for sales into this resistance here that never actually got retested as support. So we still have that fresh support that price could come and test. So if that does happen, simply we'll wait for that break, the retest, show rejection, and get some sales in the lower time frames. If not, and we hold into that support, then simply just will be looking for buys. I'm looking for a test of this level here, which again has not been retested as resistance. We broke through and price just continued. So fresh resistance above us, fresh support below us, just depending on what price wants to do at this level. Does it want to hold, or does it want to break? And we'll find out coming into the price action next week. So far it looks like it's holding, so we'll be looking for one more test of this level, and if we can reject it, we'll be looking for entries and take this back up into that resistance above us there. Stops underneath, of course, which is around 1.24400. And if not, we see that break, we'll wait for that retest. And again, it's important to wait for the retest just in case we get false breaks and manipulation. But if we can get that retest, great. We'll look for sales back into our 1.21700 area. So just playing off that level this week, seeing if we see that bullish momentum come back, or we just see the bearish momentum continue. Wait for the break and retest, then we follow the shorts back down into those lows. Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you're finding it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, not much this week. Again, a little bit choppy, as you can see. That's pretty much the price action we've had this week. Just price, up, down, moving sideways. But we're still holding this support now turn resistance, which is the low that I was talking about last week, saying if we do hold this as resistance, it'll be great to take some trades out, because we can see some continuation back down to the next psychological level of 0.84. However, as you can see, we failed to break this low here, and price is still holding that as support. So for me, euro pound, still looking for those sells, but if not, and we see price break above this level, we'll be looking for a push back into this support now, turn resistance up here around the 0.85 200 level. So really nice support, looking for price to get above that level, and you can see some buys from here and take that back into that as resistance, and then from there we might come back down again, because still, if you look at the bigger picture here, price has really collapsed to the downside and hasn't had much retracement. Had a bit of consolidation there, continued and consolidating again now, so you can still see that retracement back up. If I do get a fib on that move there, you can see even 50% is still above that, so you can still see price maybe even break through that resistance there, maybe even push a little bit higher. Depends on price, how much price wants to retrace, of course. But if you do get above this, we'll look for a retest and continuations to back into that level there. If not, like I said, price will probably fall to the downside and come and test that 0.84 mark just below us there, as you can see. So we'll be looking to see if we can get some more rejection here coming onto Monday. Again, we'll wait to see if price can pull away first and come back and retest it, and if we can get some strong rejections, we'll be looking at some shorts around this area, stops above there. First target does have to be where all these wicks are, because price could easily reject it again, come back to your entry price. So if we can target there, lock some partials in, maybe a stop loss to break even, and then if we can get that break, we'll hold on to around the 0.84 mark. If not, and we decide to break through, quite early, break through that level, we'll wait for the retest, of course, show prices holding this as support, and then we'll get into those longs. Watch out for false breaks as well, because manipulation can happen quite a lot at these levels here. And then we'll take those longs back up into that resistance up there. So decent risk to reward on both trades. Just see what happens with this level, break above, looking for those longs, hold underneath as resistance, looking for those shorts, back down to 0.84. Okay, so next up we've got AUD USD. So for this pair, as you can see, more continuation to the upside. Again, I did say to you guys that if you do break past this resistance here on the left, wait for that retrace, the retest of that level, and look for continuations. I'll probably most likely come and take out this wick here, and as you can see, that's exactly what happened. If we held underneath that level as resistance, we'll be looking for the sell-off, but we broke above, held that area, and we saw that continuation to the upside and take out those wicks there. So price has officially made another higher high and that higher low, so price could be looking at reversing potentially long term here for AU, unless it's not just a fake out to grab liquidity and dump to the downside. As you can see here, we had this nice bearish trend here, push, pull back, push, broke through structure, create a higher high, came back, higher low, and now we've just recently created a higher high. So we could be turning bullish here potentially, but again, we'll be sticking to the immediate price action and then just following price along from there. But as of right now, price is kind of trading at around about a key level here of support and resistance. As you can see, around the 0.74800 mark, nice support there. Price broke through, was acting as resistance, nice sell off to the downside, resistance there again, nice tap into that level, quite accurate as well, big sell off to the downside. So if price does hold underneath this level, which so far kind of is doing, probably expecting a test of this as support, price to come back and retest this level here around 0.74, nice psychological mark. Or if price decides to break above this, we'll look at the lower time frames to see if we're holding a support, look for some buys, and then we'll probably see a swing back into this resistance up here and just continue that reversal, like I said, of that new high, new low, new high, maybe around that area up there. So jump down to the 4H, just clear things up. So yeah, like I said, if we can hold that as support, we'll be looking for continuations to the upside. So we get above this, start showing rejection around here, probably wait for a daily close above this as well. Then yeah, could see a nice swing up into that level. And again, guys, you don't have to target all the way up there. There could still be very, very decent opportunities for pushes back into these highs up there. Again, if you use the hourly time frame or even lower, really nice risk to reward. This is just the 4H, but if you do break past that level, then yeah, we could see a push into around the 0.75900 mark. If not, and we break below, start holding this as resistance, so stuff like that, maybe a double top of that resistance, then yeah, we'll change the bias to sell, and then we'll look for a retest of that and a push back down to 0.74. So just to see what happens. Again, guys, very, very reactive in this market. Let the market decide where it wants to go, and then you just look for your entries to get involved with those moves. So if we hold above this, buys back up to 0.75900, back below, starts holding resistance, putting in some lower highs, we'll look for sells back down into 0.74 for next week. Okay, so now I'm going to jump onto NZD CAD. So NZD CAD this week, a lot of bullish momentum. We saw that last week and it just continued into this week. Again, did have that sell bias, looking for sells this week. First at this resistance here, and then second at this really key daily resistance here on the left. So as you can see there, price will reject this numerous times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, looking for sells around here. As you can see so far, price is holding on to that level. So those sells are still valid from that level, but we did break through that. So NZD CAD, looking at this price action at this pair, I can potentially see price reversing, because this could be like a really big double bottom here. Price, push, pull back, that low there, big pullback to the upside, rejecting that previous low, and we could be seeing that big double bottom potentially. So I do have that in my back of my mind, but again, I'm not looking to trade that, unless price action tells me to do that. This is clearly at resistance, and I'm looking for sells to the downside. If you start breaking above this, then yeah, we'll be looking for that push to the upside, maybe back to levels all the way up there. So coming into next week, looking at sells to start off with, because we're holding that resistance really key, and I can see a push back down into this area here for next week. And if you can break through that, second targets will be at this support here as well. As you can see, really nice support, 1, 2, 3, looking at kind of a fourth test there. So we had a break, so looking for a fourth test there for NZD CAD. If not, we break above, then we'll be looking at that break and retest to those highs up there. So if we take a look at that on the 4H time frame, again guys, just playing what the market wants to do, not trying to hold any bias to heart too much. But if we continue this as resistance, then sells back down into these lows here, and if we can get a break of that, can look to hold into that trade a little bit more, probably around the 0.87 area. If not, and we break to the upside, and like I said, that reversal could be on, break and retest of that, hold that as support, and then continuations back up into these areas up there, maybe around the 0.9 area, nice psychological level to target. So could be some big moves up, even if it's to the downside or to the upside, could be some big moves coming up for NZD CAD. So definitely a pair to watch out for, but hold underneath that level, looking for sells, break above, looking for buys for next week. Okay, so next up we've got pound NZD. So for this pair, we did see some nice continuation to the downside. Again, last week I did say on my analysis that our targets will be this support here on the daily time frame, really strong support. We broke through this low and just looking for continuations back down into this support here, which we did hit quite quickly. I think that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we were trading at there. So all that bearish momentum from the week before just continued, and we did see a push into 1.92, and I actually do think price can continue a little bit more for pound NZD coming into next week. If you just take a look at the weekly time frame quickly, you can see price is giving us this head and shoulders here, left shoulder there, head shoulder there, right shoulder here, and that could potentially be our first high low and potentially a bearish trend continuing to the downside. So I can see a push into this low here for the weekly time frame quite soon-ish, probably the next weekly candle, just filling that gap back into this really strong support there, which is around 1.91. so for next week I can just see that continuation down to that area. And if we go back onto the daily, looking for a push there. So waiting for some retrace first before we get in, because do remember price, for pound NZD, even though I think it will come into this support here, is actually still trading at this support here on the left. So that will still be rejecting price. So hopefully we can get some retracement to the upside coming into next week. We're going to the 4H, so get a bit of retracement back into this level, break and retest that support and resistance. Then we can base some trades off that level to hit some sells, all the way down there. That'd be a really nice trade there. Nice and healthy risk reward as well. If we do break above, not too interested in the buys because momentum is still to the downside. It might just mean we're going to have, you know, a bigger retracement and probably maybe a push into this level here. Just looking at the left there, around the just underneath 1.95, so nice psychological level there as well. So if we do push there, can look for sales around here, but mainly focus on the break and retest of that level. But if we do break above, some sales from around here could look good as well, because simply just trying to continue that bearish momentum to the downside. Again, weekly is looking very, very probable of price just filling that gap to the downside as well. So hoping to get a bit of retracement to the upside, back up to 1.93, and we'll look for shorts back down to 1.91 next week. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to CAD JPY. So CAD JPY, as you can still see, crazy move to the upside we've seen over the past few days, but we're starting to see a bit of retracement now, which we were expecting to see for CAD JPY this week. Again, coming into 93 there, so a really nice psychological level. As you can see, pretty much tapped 93 almost to the pip there. You can see this is a daily time frame, so 93 is about here. And as you can see, if you look at my crosshair, price just tapped into 93, then started to sell off from there. So yeah, we've seen some nice downside. Again, targets for CAD JPY was this previous high here on the left, which price broke through, and looking for price to come back and retest that, which we're not too far away from. So I can still see a bit more downside coming into this week. Again, still guys, the higher time frame momentum is still to the upside. I know price is looking bearish on the 4H, but you know, if we suddenly see price turn bullish again and start creating some new highs, we know why. It's because price is continuing what it's seeing on the higher time frame. So again, looking for shorts, but do be careful, wait for your confirmations, don't just jump right in. But you know, coming into the next week, we'll be looking for sells. We do have this really nice resistance here, which price has just formed over here on the left, around the 92,400. So if price can pull back up into that area, that'll be great. We'll be looking for sells there to take that to the downside. But essentially for next week, as long as we can stay beneath this wick here, not create any higher highs, there's a good probability we'll probably see that retracement continue back down to 91,200, which is that previous high on the daily, taken as support. But I don't expect to see clean price action this week for CAD JPY like we're seeing here. You know, this is supposed to be the retracement, so we should be moving quite corrective with, you know, steep pullbacks as price does, you know, fall down. If we do fall down like we, you know, came up here with a lot of bearish momentum, then we might be seeing a big reversal happening, or a big fake out above that daily level there. But what I'm expecting is just retracement, so it's going to be a bit choppy. So hopefully you can get that retest of that level there, or like I said, as long as we stay below that wick, so maybe a retest of this resistance, and then from there we'll be looking for our sales to the downside. So CAD JPY, not focused on buys. You know, we've had a crazy move to the upside recently, not really looking to continue buys, you know, after that movement. Want to see price show me some healthy retracement first before I look to you know, analyze for some buys. Right now just fixed on those sells, either from 92,400 or 92,800 back down to 91,100 down there. Okay, so on my screen now I've got pound USD. So pound USD this week, we did see a momentum continue. As you can see, I was looking at this trend line here last week, looking for price to react with that and see some downside back down to this level here. Really strong support, 1, 2, 3 was acting in resistance, but failed to really, you know, see a move from that level. We broke through, was looking for price to react with that trend line and see a test of this level of around 1.36, but instead we actually broke to the upside and came and tested this next target here on the left of 1.38500, or almost did anyway. So for me, pound USD still looking bullish, but overall we still do have those, you know, higher time frame structure of bearish structure. You've got that low there, lower high, got that low, lower high, lower low. So potentially we could see price fall over, but potentially you could still see price continue. You know, we're broken through that trend line there, and momentum is currently bullish with this daily chart here. So looking at two opportunities for pound USD, we've broken through this high here on the left, which will now be acting as support. So you can either see price, you know, use that broken resistance as support with confluence of that trend line break as well, and see another push to the upside. And at that point we might be looking at push all the way up to 1.4-ish or 1.39 around here, and properly see a reversal for pounds. If not, we leap back inside the trend line and back through there. We'll wait for the retest and just continue back down to 1.36. So again, we'll be reactive with this one and just see what the market gives us. If we start holding, if we go into the 4H time frame, if you start holding this as support, you've seen a couple of rejections, nothing too major there, still looking quite bearish. But if we do come into next week and we start showing a lot more rejections holding support, buyers will be looking good, and just play that range back into these highs around 1.38400. So we'll be looking at that opportunity there for pound USD, back up into that resistance there. But if not, and we lead to the downside and just break through that and come back inside the trend line, we'll wait for a retest and sells back down to 1.36, which we never actually retested on the daily when we broke through. So that's still fresh support on the daily, which price could come back down and retest. So if we do lead to the downside and that bearish momentum just really continues, we'll wait for retracement, retest to that level, and then sells to the downside. So it just depends what price gives us for next week, and then just we'll react to that, and wait for our confirmation, of course, to confirm our trades and not just blindly get in, and look for a move either back down to 1.36200 if we break through that and we get that retest, or if we hold a support, just simply look for continuation back up to around 1.38400. Okay, so next up we've got pound CAD. So pound CAD, as you can see, still overall a bearish market. Not too much this week, all past 2 weeks really. As you can see, price kind of a little bit choppy here, but still expecting to see a move to the downside for pound CAD. As you can see here, really nice daily support here on the left, where we test that for ages. Big move to the upside, now holding as resistance. So simply just a simple break and retest, continue with that bearish momentum there on the daily, and looking for a push back down into these daily lows. And if we do see new lows, maybe at that next psychological level of 1.68 down there. So looking for sales off this level, as long as we stay below it. If we break above, then we'll probably see a push into this resistance here of all those wicks there. So either which way, there could be a really nice long opportunity or short opportunity. If we do break to the upside, wait for a daily close above this to confirm that we're breaking above, because as you can see on the 4H, we've had a few closes, but over on the daily, the price is still really holding that as resistance. So wait for that daily strong close above, and then for the next day, wait for that retest, and we could be looking at continuations to the upside. And that's where we look for our buying opportunities and a push into that resistance up there, of course. But if not, and we just see price still rejecting this level as resistance here, coming onto Monday and Tuesday, or Monday at least, because we might fall to the downside quite early on. So coming into Monday, see if we can hold that as resistance. If we do, we'll be looking for shorts to the downside into those daily lows, all the way down there. Stops above that level, of course, and then push into these lows here as the first target, probably second target there. Then potentially you can try and push that onto 1.68, but essentially just looking for a push into those lows. So pound CAD to the downside is looking really good for next week. That's the trade that I'm looking for that rollover to the downside. But if you do break to the upside, that's cool as well. We'll be looking for the break and retest, and then push into the around the 1600 area for next week. And now we're going to move on to pound JPY. So pound JPY, another JPY pair, took a bit of a breather this week. Again, nice sharp move to the downside. And again, I said watch out for the psychological level of 158 and potentially 157 as well. 157 was around here. We broke through that, came to 158 there, a few weeks into that level on the daily, and from that we saw a nice push to the downside. So nice play off 158 there, nice psychological level acting as resistance. And then our targets were this area here of prior resistance there, of course, that prior high now turned support. So we'll see what happens this week. Again, we're going to play off this level for this week for pound JPY, see if we do hold this as support, see some nice rejections, and probably see another swing to the upside, or if we decide to break underneath this, because again, we've had such a crazy move to the upside there. If I do get a fib out and do from the start of the move to the end, you can see 50% of the move is all the way down there. So you potentially could see healthy retracement back down to this level here. So there's still a lot of mileage to the downside if price does want to retrace that. But if it doesn't this week and just holds into that support, we'll be looking for buys. If it does fall to the downside, we'll be looking for the next psychological level below this, which is 155. Price is trading at 156 right now, which is kind of lining up with this resistance here on the left. So just filling that gap to downside. Again, not looking for anything too major. The momentum is still with the bulls. I know we're seeing two bearish candles of decent size, but momentum on the daily and the weekly will be to the upside, and we could easily see, you know, halfway through the week momentum just reverse to the upside. So not going to be too aggressive with these sales, but price is looking a little bit bearish here on the 4H. So we'll be seeing what price does at that support. If it does start holding it, rejecting it, we'll look for buys to the upside, and again targeting probably those highs all the way up there, but we'll be looking at taking partials because price might want to fall down against us. We've got some levels here to look at, and then the highs are up there, so can look to target those levels there as price does push up. If not, can look for the break and retest, or probably the lower time frames there. 4H, the risk reward might be a bit skewed, so probably look at the hourly, the 15-minute there. If we can break beneath that, we'll be looking at 155 down there for that break and retest. But essentially, just seeing how price reacts to that level, you know, that's a lot of bearish momentum there on the 4H. You might just break through on Monday. If that's the case, we could be getting some sales early on in that break and retest. If not, we store that level, we see a lot of wicks, a lot of dojis, could be getting in some longs here back up into that resistance, and if you can break through that, back up into the highs up there for next week. Okay, so now let's take a look at gold. So gold this week, bit of a move to the outside. Again, we did have that trend line there on the 4H time frame. That price did end up respecting, as you can see here, a little bit of, you know, breaks below, but essentially we're holding on to that trend line and price continued to the upside. So we are still looking bullish here for gold. Looking at the 4H, looking not so much at the daily. Daily overall is kind of a little bit messy, I'm not gonna lie. But we do have this key level of resistance just above us here for gold, which I'm starting to focus a lot more on, because I believe if we can break through this, price will most likely move into these highs here on the left here on the 1830 mark. Really nice resistance there, 1, 2, 3 times strong reaction from that level. So if you do clear this, see daily close above that, can wait for the break and retest into that. But I think as long as we stay underneath that, gold might end up falling to the downside and create some new lows past this point, and just continue that bearish trend, because we are still, you know, kind of bearish on this as price is moving here more or less sideways, but it's still, you know, failing to push on and create higher highs, and still is sort of pushing lower lows. So I can still see price collapse into the downside for gold, but if not, it's because we'll probably break through that as resistance, use that as support, and continue back into those highs. So just looking to play it off that. But for the sells, we do really need to break through that trend line to be looking at sells, you know, to really get a swing out of that, because potentially gold can just find support at the trend line again and just continue. So we'll be looking at 2 situations here for gold for next week. If we can break through that resistance, great. Probably wait for a daily close, not just 4 hour, wait for a daily close above this level, and we'll wait for the retest and look for a swing into those highs up there again, like around 1830. If not, and we hold this level as resistance, or we break through the trend line, we'll be waiting for that lower high somewhere, the retest of that trend line as resistance, and we'll be looking for sells and probably targeting around this area here of support. Nice push into that level, and if we do break through that, we'll most likely head back down to these lows down there, which could be a really nice swing trade. Again, don't have to target all the way down there. Move to that support will be a good enough trade as well. So I can see potentially gold turning bullish and bearish with this one, but for me to be bearish with gold, we do need to break through that trend line. As long as we stay above that, I think gold will slowly creep to the upside, and if it can break through 1805, which is this level, then we'll wait for that break and retest and just fill that range up into 1830 for next week. And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin. So Bitcoin continued to the upside, and as you can see, Bitcoin just produced some new highs at around, what is that, 60, almost 67k. So Bitcoin still very bullish market, just produced some new highs. And like I said on the previous weekly analysis video last week, we probably will make those highs this week, and we'll probably just head on to the next, you know, level, which is probably 70k, and probably onwards and upwards to 100k for Bitcoin. So overall, still looking bullish here on the daily. I'm looking at this key level here on the left for Bitcoin to see what happens, because we're coming back down into this level as support, which was key resistance here. As you can see here, resistance there, nice move to the downside. That was a fake out because we came straight back in, retest as resistance, and there was this level here that price formed that lower high on the daily and collapsed to the downside all the way to around that 38k, not 38, sorry, 30k mark for Bitcoin. So if we can hold this as support, I can see price using this level as support and probably giving us a move up to 70k, or at least back to these previous highs up there. If we do leak to the downside, hold it as resistance, have a break of that level, then we might come back and retest this, you know, previous high up there as support. So could be seeing some nice sells or buys, because again, like I said, Bitcoin is, you know, still overall bullish, but it might take that retracement, and it's kind of had quite a bullish push here to the upside. If I do get a fib on that, price might want to retrace to the downside. Again, 50% of that move kind of lines up quite nicely with that previous high there on the left, taking that level across. So we can still see a push into that level, retrace and then continue, but price might want to hold into this level of 60k and use that to push up into highs. So we'll be looking at what price action does here. So far we're seeing some nice wicks, so if we can keep that up coming into next week, could be some nice buys here. Take that into the highs, and then, you know, potentially 70k if you really want to push this one. If not, a break to the downside, we'll wait for that break and retest, and then the sells to the downside at around 53k, all the way down there for Bitcoin. All right guys, so that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed that and found that useful. Like always, comments down below if you enjoyed the content, you want to see more agree or disagree with my analysis, let me know in the comments and I will get back to you guys. If you did enjoy it, you know, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It does really help the channel out, and I'm grateful for all of that, guys. But hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe.